Welcome back to another game analysis. My friend messaged me on Discord and said, I have the perfect game for your YouTube channel. So let's check it out. We have E45 Classic, and we have a Scotch game, also classic. Scotch game, always solid. And we have F6. Ben Feingold says to never play F6 because it opens up your king this way if you're not castled. It opens up your king this way if you castle kingside. So it's a pretty risky move. He says never play F6. Um, but the computer says it's a good move, so the computer disagrees with Ben Feingold. I wonder who's right. Bishop to h4 going back. Now knight attacks queen. Queen to a4, pinning the knight. Bishop unpins, and now bishop to b5. The reason the computer says bishop to e5 is a mistake, in my opinion, is that it allows black to play a6 and force this trade out. Now, the computer tends to favor the bishop pair like a lot. And the computer also tends to favor knights over bishops bishops over knights unless you're like doing something like doubling pawns, like creating an attack, so you get some kind of compensation for you're not just trading a bishop for a knight, or you trade a weak bishop for a strong knight, like something like that the computer would favor. But in my experience, the computer just prefers bishops over knight in a standard trade like we have here. Queen goes out of the bishop's threat range. Queen gets developed. Now pawn to f3. Ben Feingold says never play f6 and never play f3, and both these players have played them. F3 is obviously to defend this pawn that was attacked twice over here, so I understand that. F3 is excellent. It was even better than f6. The computer likes these f-pawn moves. Queenside castle by both players, and now king to b8, making the king a little bit safer. And white says, screw king safety, I am marching onward with my pawn. Pawn to a4. Great move there. We have queen to e5, and then rook to d3, blundering a fork with queen to f4 check, and king moves, and the bishop is picked up. Black is now up a complete bishop, and white doesn't have a whole lot of compensation here, as seen by the eval bar. We have rook h to d1, always good to double up. Now that is another free pawn. That is a free pawn. And black decides to go here, queen f2, and go after this pawn instead. Rook 1 to d2 for defending like x-ray defending like that. And then we have queen to c5, getting queen out of harm's way. Knight to e2, trying to reposition the knight somewhere. And then queen to f2, a blunder, but only if white finds the right move. As you can see here, there's only one good move for white, and that is knight to d4, because it attacks the bishop and it opens up a discovery on the queen. And the bishop is actually hanging because this pawn that's defending it is pinned to the king. So that bishop's just kind of a sitting duck right there. But white plays knight to f4, and now black is safe and recovered. Queen to g1 check, giving queen valuable time to get away, and picks up this pawn. It says queen captures this pawn as an inaccuracy. It doesn't look too terrible. Knight to e6, attacking the rook. Rook to d7, a blunder, because now this bishop is basically trapped. The rook cut the bishop's retreat path off. The bishop can't go here because there's a pawn. The bishop can't go here because there's a pawn. And the bishop is actually completely hanging still because of this ever-present pin there. Now, the computer likes rook to c3, having the rook take. But white plays knight to d4, and now the knight threatens the bishop. So still solid, Bishop captures on e4. All right. The bishop's is a dead man walking, so he's gonna take a pawn down with him. Pawn captures, and now queen to e5. Another blunder for the same exact idea of this pin. The knight can go knight to c6 check, and that is a royal fork. and white basically wins it after king goes here or something, then bam, that is a free queen. But white plays rook to e2, defending the pawn. Oh no. Okay, queen to e8. Now the queen's out of harm's way. Rook to c3. Computer doesn't like it because the computer keeps thinking that knight to c6 check is just really strong. I mean, it is. It's not a bad move. You know, there's a lot of good potential for it. Pawn to g5. The computer liked queen to f7 for black, and now it's really awkward for white because your queen is actually pinned to the king. And if the queens get traded with black at +2, which you can't see because I anonymize the names, I anonymize the game to protect the innocent. Black's at +2, get the queen traded off. The king is super safe. There's no more pins anymore. Like, black basically just is big chilling the rest of the game. But now, after pawn to g5, white can play rook to c4 as a miss because, again, the computer just really likes knight to c6 check. But okay, rook to c4. Now there's no queen to f7 ideas, but black goes bishop to g7, which makes a lot of sense because now you want to activate the rook, you want to activate the bishop. Looking at these lines, I don't see any bishop moves, but I guess if I were to move the bishop, I would move it right here because well, the computer doesn't like that either. It's still a miss-win, but you know, if you wanted to move the bishop, I think this is a better square because this pawn is backwards. So if you try to push it to open up your bishop, like you just basically lose a pawn for it. And this you can open up the bishop without losing a pawn. So anyway, now we have rook to b4 piling up on the pawn. It's again a mistake because the computer really likes that. The computer really likes knight to c6 check. And now we have queen to c8, again punishable by knight to c6 check. But now we have knight to e6 and knight to c6 check. I mean, it's still decent for black here, but we have knight to e6 attacking the bishop, which this bishop's not doing anything. You should absolutely not make this trade. This bishop is doing nothing, and this knight is really strong. So now we have rook defends bishop, and even though the bishop is already defended, and now rook to e3, lifting the rook, and now the rook is going to attack. Pawn to h5. All right, so black is like, okay, well, I'm gonna defend everything, push my pawns forward, trade one of these for this, and then get a queen, right? And now we have pawn to c4. The computer likes rook to c3, it likes queen to c4, you know, basically like you have all these pieces involved in the attack, right? And this queen, I mean, it's defending, it's providing a useful defense, but you know, like the queen is tied down defending that pawn. This rook isn't doing a whole heck of a lot. I mean, I guess it's kind of defending this pawn, but you know, this knight is doing absolutely nothing, and this rook is just defending the bishop that's already defended. So black doesn't really have a whole lot of activity, so white needs to use their activity advantage and go in. But this c4 move's little dubious because the rook would be better off here. Okay, pawn to h4 and rook to c3. And the computer doesn't like it because the only best move here is actually c5, trying to push in, and this just is continuing the attack. You know, like if you played that pawn move to attack, you might as well continue the attack. So instead we have rook to c3, which again makes sense. You want to support the pawn with you want to support the pawn with the rook, but unfortunately that does allow this kind of discovery here. F5 is the third best move, so that discovery is pretty strong. Now we have rook to e8 attacking the knight, and knight takes the bishop. This is a huge mistake by white, in my opinion, because, and in fact, the only good move here for white, according to the computer, was actually pawn to c5, because if you because it opens up a defense of the knight from the queen, and it continues the attack. Excuse me, this is what happens when I yap. My throat gets really dry. What a insane move c5 is. Clearly I didn't see that because I'm garbage. Knight to g7 is not the best move because you're trading this really strong knight for this absolutely useless bishop that was going nowhere. So, okay, now pawn to c5, just a turn too late. Okay, rooks pile up on this pawn right here. And now we have queen to c4 defending. This allows black to basically trade 2 rooks for the queen. Black could go rook captures on e4, or queen and a pawn. Rook captures on e4, queen captures, rook captures, and black is still actually at +2 because a queen and a pawn is worth 10 and 2 rooks are worth 10. And maybe black could make something happen here with the queen versus the 2 rooks and being up 3 pawns. So that was an option, but black played king to a7, getting out of this pin finally. Queen to d4, defending, but that still allows the rook exchange there that we talked about. Rook to d7, and this unfortunately is not punished. The strong move here is queen captures on f6 because that is just a free pawn. But we have rook to d5 check. Always fun to get a discovery and attack a piece at the same time. Queen goes back. The best move here for black. The only move because basically like now white equalizes the game by taking a free rook. The only move, for black that keeps black super ahead in the game is pawn to c5. And that is a massive move. It blocks the check. It forks these 2 pieces. And if you take this, now rook can take the queen. And okay, you take this queen, and basically we're just going to trade one more pair of rooks. So maybe we go like this rook takes and then this rook takes. I don't know which order, like which rook taking would be better. But now we trade down to this endgame. Black is up a pawn and is completely winning. Just a side note, like one rook endgames, pawns on 2 sides of the board. It favors the one rook with pawns on opposite sides of the board, favors the side that's ahead, in this case black. But if all the pawns were on one side of the board, like these were gone, and like let's say this is gone too, like black's got a 2-to-1 on the side, but all the pawns are on the same side, with 1 rook each, that's pretty much a draw. So the more you know. Okay, so that could have happened if black found c5. Instead, black moves the king out of the way, and this allows white to get back in the game. Now white is actually at +3 with an extra rook and down 2 pawns, but the game is still, the eval bar still says black is slightly ahead because these pawns are pretty strong, and also c5 is still a fork, and that's the only move that keeps black in the game. And now we have pawn to c6, and then that gives up this pawn. Rook d captures on b7, and now the queen is traded for the 2 rooks. But now white checks, and that is a fork, and takes on e8. And this has been a bit of a longer video because I went into a little more detail, but I hope you enjoyed it. And my friends had to put this game on the channel, so here it is. I hope you liked it.